See, we got the distinction of being one of the depressed counties in the state.
We've been that way forever.
I don't know, but it came out in the paper.
Yeah, it came out in the paper.
It was like brand new news.
Yeah,
Well, if it's written down, it must be true.
Yeah, it's not.
especially when it's on Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion first, is I gotta be at an inspection at 10, so what is it you need it?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our second meeting of our tax reevaluation task force. I want to welcome you all here today. Do a roll call to start with. John Bridgers. Here. Jerry. Here. Ethan.
Here.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Here.
Tim.
Here.
All right, and we'll introduce the rest. Mr. County Manager is here also with us. All right, thank you so much. At this time, if you've got one of these devices with you, if you will just check and make sure it's on silent, we would appreciate it because we do tape these meetings, okay? Just take a quick look at it and make sure it's on silent.
Now, silence in me is a whole different show.
I know,
How
sir.
you putting it on silent?
I have no earthly idea. Let's see what you got here. Put him on silent, will you?
Pass it to me.
It's on the side there.
Oh, okay. I'll take your word for it.
I think we got it.
All right.
If it rings, it's okay. Our second order of business is approval of the agenda. I will entertain a motion if you've had an opportunity to take a look at that agenda. Take a motion.
So moved.
All right, got a motion for Tim. Who was the second? Okay. You got that, Madam Clerk? Okay, they're here today. You can see them. All righty. Moving on to approval of our minutes from our first meeting. I think those have come out to you and you've had an opportunity to take a look at them. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Evan makes a motion, Tim is second. Thank you so very much. Under new business, or for today, new business, I'm going to recognize our two newly appointed members to our board. They've been around for a good while. So first of all, I want to introduce Brian Smith. And Brian, I want you, since I think you may know everybody here or may not.
I don't know everybody, but I know several.
Know several of them. Okay, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you wanted to be with us.
Well, I was born and raised in Burke. I was born and raised in Burke County, and other than my time in the Army and going to college at App State, I've been here my whole life, and I'm a home builder. I've been a builder for almost 30 years.
Oh.
And Brian Barrier actually asked me if I'd be interested in doing this just because of being a builder, and hopefully I can bring some knowledge to the table there.
I'm sure you will. All right. Well, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Brian? All right, good. Let's go to my dear friend Jim Bloat, who I've known for about maybe 50 years.
Amen.
It's been a long time, hasn't it? Since Newport News, Virginia.
From Newport News, Virginia, graduated from William and Mary, been in real estate, I'm 87, been in real estate forever. Since I was licensed when I was 19 in Virginia. I've been licensed in the state of North Carolina for 50 years. I was the charter president of the Western Piedmont Home Builders Association back in 81 or 2, something like that. And still working about 6 days a week, enjoying it. And I just thought maybe I could make a difference from my experiences for this community.
Good, good. Jim and I met, like you said, back up in Newport News, Virginia. I was a young 21-year-old cop, and his wife had an accident over on Jefferson Avenue, and he threatened me and told me not to give her a ticket.
Now, you know what? I thought I could remember things. And that one,
You remember when Lou Allen had the wreck on Jefferson Avenue?
not Lou Allen.
Yeah, it was at that time.
No, it was Mary.
Was it Mary?
That was my first one.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was Lou Allen. Maybe it was Mary. Okay, anyway, we got that covered. No.
I knew the chief of police.
Who was it, Chief Peach?
Yep.
Chief Peach.
It
Yeah.
sure was, Chief Peach.
I remember him well. Well, thank you both for being here. We really appreciate you being on the task force. At this time, I'm going to introduce Namarita Nelson. She's going to introduce us to something called CAMA, C-A-M-A, and the Valuation Framework presentation. So, Ms. Nelson, it's your show today. Come on up.
While she's coming up, let me just say CAMA is acronym for Computer Assisted Mass Appraisal. So this is the computer system.
Okay, great.
And may I just offer too, as she's going through, she's totally comfortable, we've talked about this, as board members have questions, Mr. Chairman, we're totally fine for folks to ask questions as she's going through, so it's not intended to be just a lecture. If there's, the goal of this presentation is for the board to see the input components for how a value is built. Ultimately, and we talked about this, and for our two new members, in November of 2026, as this task force comes to a conclusion, we hope to have built the schedule of values, which is applied to each unique piece of real property in Burke County, either based on land acreage and characteristics or the home size and all of those things that build the values. All of those individual characteristics are put into this mass appraisal software. And month to month, as we continue to move forward, we're going to be looking at different costs and different variables that would build that. But for today's purpose, we wanted the board to see what the back end of that system looked like and how it functioned and how it talked to each other. And then after she goes through, we've also began tracking sales. And we have about 4,700 sales that were sent to you all that have started to dictate the sales ratio, which we talked about last month. So we'll be asking the board to consider recognizing and endorsing these sales numbers that ultimately will begin our initial sales ratio. It'll be fluid throughout the entire process, but again, as non-readers coming up, I just want everybody to feel comfortable not asking questions and making sure we have a firm grasp on how the system works, because that's ultimately what's going to yield the values for the 2027 revaluation process. Thanks.
Great explanation. Anybody got any questions for Brian before we start?
Is this a new format? Is this
The
a new
board?
format?
This board?
No. What the presentation?
No, it's not new. No.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Take it away.
Well, good morning all, and thank you all for being here. I think our tax office is going to benefit greatly from the collective expertise in this room. The goal is to walk you through the process of a revaluation and sort of build up the case for how we come up with values, and that it's not sort of a random black box. It's a system that's driven by the market. And I'd like to sort of walk you through the process. And like Brian said, any questions, please stop us, and I'll try my best to explain. So we are going to talk about sales ratios. This is sort of where the revaluation process starts. We're going to build on a graphic that we're going to go through over the next couple of slides that will hopefully explain the whole process clearly. So you know that we had a revaluation in 2023. The flat line here is our assessed values, which is the value that the tax office fixes for all of the real property in the county. The dashed line up here is the sales line, and as you can see, the sales is sort of pulling away from the assessed value. And the blue bar on the side here, this is us today, before the 2027 revaluation. As you can see, we started out with our assessed values and sales sort of converging over here in 2023, and they're pulling away here. The gap...
What is that percentage between the solid line and the dotted line?
It's about 10%, 11% right now, right? As you can see, the sales are pulling away, and if you measure the difference between the sales and the assessed value, the 2023 assessed value, you start to see how far and by category what the adjustments might be that you would need to do to the assessed values in 2027 to bring the assessed values and the market values back in line. And that's sort of the purpose of the revaluation, is that you're trying to make those points converge again. So to sort of build on the case of what we're trying to do, we're going to go through each of these items in detail. Let's talk about assessed value. So you know that the tax office, you've heard that the tax office comes up with a value for all parcels in the county. We've got 60,000 parcels in Burke County. But how do you organize them in a way that makes sense, that's fair and equitable, where you're treating all of these properties in a way that makes sense? So before we talk about our sales or trends, let's understand what assessed value actually is. Everything in our system, it'll come back, okay, sorry.
We buy from the lowest bidder, remember?
So everything in our system, which is called CAMA, like John explained, it's the computerized mass appraisal process, is based on rules and frameworks. So our data is organized in this fashion. You've got the county on the top. The county is divided up into 13 townships. The 13 townships are further broken down into 1,000 market areas, and those market areas are broken down into 60,000 parcels in Burke County. We use CAMA, which is our computer-assisted mass appraisal process that uses data that's organized in this fashion to come up with values for every parcel in the county. Most of the revaluation work starts here at the market area level. If you were to think about building a house, if you built this same exact house along the lake or else in rural Burke County, the cost to build a house is pretty much the same. The land value changes. So the idea of the market areas, the 1,000 market areas, is that you're trying to divide the county into sections where land acts similarly, that the characteristics of the land are the same, and you're going to price those by market area. The building values are established on a county-wide level, and then they are adjusted based on grade and depreciation and the age of the building, and we'll show you all that. Any questions so far? Does this make sense so far? Okay, so what is CAMA actually doing? Basically, CAMA breaks up all costs into components. The broad components are land, building, and miscellaneous improvement. Land is valued by market area, so you've got lots of different land pricing across the county. You've got different levers to value land, so you've got land lines, and then you've got adjustments to the land. So, for example, you'd have, you want at least 2 land lines to happen because you know that land pricing is not linear. If 1 acre is $10,000, 2 acres is not going to be $20,000. There's nuances in there. You've also got adjustments. So, for example, if you've got homes around a lake, the house with the best view should be valued a little bit higher than the home that doesn't. You need to have ways in which you can manipulate the value such that value lands where it should. So.
One comment, just going back to what you said a second ago, and I think Jim and Brian would agree. In a perfect world, yes, you build a house out in the county, the house is the house. You build a house at the lake, it's the same house, but your cost of construction at the lake are going to be more just because it's the lake. And there are certain builders that have established a niche there where out in the county, it may be, just to use a number, $200 a square foot. At the lake, it's incrementally higher. You might be $300 to $350.
Yeah.
You agree, Brian?
But would that include the land, or is that just building costs? Not including land, not including.
Land is more expensive at the lake.
Obviously, yeah, right.
Right.
So just building cost, there's that kind of
Just
difference.
those areas, whether right, wrong, good or bad, they tend to command a higher per square foot. I've seen, and you're better to tell than me, I've seen out in the county, you may be $200 a square foot to build. At the lake, there's builders getting $600, $700, $800 a square foot. Because it's the lake, they can command those kind of.
They can demand that price.
But the materials cost the same thing, correct?
Well,
Yeah.
no, let me tell you something, John.
A two before, yes, but you
Yeah,
get
but
into
I'm not
specialties.
talking about framing.
Okay.
I'm talking about finish.
Yeah.
And the specifications, there's so many custom appointments in most of the homes at the lake. Just, all kind of exotic woods they use, front doors, $15,000 front doors, all that sort of stuff. And most of that's not, I mean, the reason it might be $200 in another area in the county, it's because the demands and the specifications, you see very, very few houses in the county other than at the lake. You see some of it at Lake Roadhouse, but nothing compared to Lake James.
Yes,
But, you'd have a mid, you'd have a high, maybe at Lake James, then you'd have Roadhouse, and then you'd have restricted subdivisions in the county, and then you'd have just out parcels. But anything that would be as custom at the lake would probably be on acreage tracts in the county with views.
Well, that-
10 to 20 acre tracts.
That is something that the tax office does take into account, the custom woods and the custom countertops and light fixtures and the outdoor kitchens, all that kind of stuff.
It's so, this construction grade is so important.
And
And
that
I've
is
seen
something
it
that we
all
do.
over the waterfront. I look at all this stuff all the time, and it's
Yeah, that is
it's
something
kind
we,
of crazy.
that is something we try to take into account to
So,
get an equitable
we
value for
obviously-
the property.
we obviously need to make sure that, the appraisers understand what grade A, B, C plus.
That's correct.
Boy, it's interpretation.
that's absolutely correct. And the grade is established at the time of construction. So a house built with superior materials receives a higher grade. And then you have depreciation. So you have a couple of different levers that you use to adjust values up or down from a very basic average, so that you try to cover every scenario in the county.
But just back to the raw basic cost difference. If you build a house out in the county and it's a wooded lot,
Right?
9 times out of 10, what most builders do is we pile up our brush and we burn it. At South Point, they don't allow that.
Right.
So you gotta pay the expense of hauling it off, or
Right.
you gotta have it chipped, which is
Right.
gonna be a whole lot more. So,
Right.
and it's like that the
And
whole
there
process.
there are instances like that where the market just commands a higher price. And as we go through these slides, you'll see how we determine what the market is. And in certain instances, you use market area adjustments where you just know that these homes in this area just command a higher value. And our schedule of values is limited because it has to apply to the whole county. So you have the ability to make an adjustment for a specific market area for a specific reason. All right, so land is valued by market area. Buildings, we have a cost schedule. It's called the schedule of values, and that is common for the whole county. You also have things like grade, like we just talked about. You have condition, depreciation, all levers again that help you value property at its at the correct gauge for the time. You also have miscellaneous improvements, which would include outbuildings and yard items, they're called, like pools, garages, decks, sheds, etc. So basically, what CAMA does is it aggregates lots of cost components into a whole, and you do it with schedules and tables so that you're using the same numbers for the whole county. So you're trying to use it in as uniform a fashion as possible. I'm actually going to show you what CAMA looks like. So this is our software that we use to value all properties in Burke County. If I went in here, I could show you, this is what our schedule of values looks like. This is so these are all the different schedules you have. down here. This is the first schedule I opened up, and this is our so you'd see up here, it's the 2023 schedule. We're going to use the 2023 schedule all the way up to 27 when we have a new schedule. And you could see that in 2027, we had $115. I'm sorry?
2023.
Did I say 27? I apologize. For 2023, we used a main square footage price of $115. And I want you to keep that in mind as we go through the rest of the slides, because it's a slight shift from the way you all probably think about property values and what tends to go through people's minds when they think of value and how CAMA builds up value. So let's look at a specific example of a parcel. So this parcel is read number 18543, which is up here. The read number is basically a identification number for one of the 60,000 parcels in the county. Number two.
If I can interject, REID means real estate ID, R-E-I-D.
Yes. This here is the market area that this particular parcel belongs in. Too easy with the clicker here. What this means is that all the parcels that belong in market area 2107 have land that's treated similarly. They also have an average grade of building that is uniform in that market area. Over here, number 3 is a picture of the property, and as you can see, it looks like it's sort of being constructed. You've got the land, you've got the building, and in this case, there is no miscellaneous improvement. This is what we see when we open up our CAMA software. If we look at just the land lines within this parcel, you can see, here's a map of it. The parcel is 20 acres. So it's this blue highlighted line. It's sort of a weirdly shaped parcel. It's made up of 3 land lines. You've got the prime site. In Burke County, we use a prime site and a balance. And basically, again, those are just levers so that you can value nuance into a property. And then above here, I have a snippet of the actual schedule. You can see that there's an adjustment, a size factor adjustment, which basically means that every incremental acre beyond a certain amount based on the schedule contributes less to the value. So every incremental acre is not as much as the first half acre.
Londrina, the prime site is essentially where the home may be built. All right,
Yes.
that's the construction site, and it's typically the first half acre.
It's typically.
And across the county, that's a uniform rate of $20,000.
No, not across the county, in
Just
that
in
market
that
area.
market.
Right, right. So, and that's really what changes the value. Because there's some market areas where the median size, the median acreage size of the parcels is going to be smaller, so the prime site has more value. There are market areas where the median acreage is large, and so the balance carries value as well. This just shows you that that parcel was down here, and this is the market area that it belongs in. So all of these parcels are valued at the same land pricing rate. So that was the $20,000 of prime site and $4,250 for the balance.
What changes the values in a market area, and do they change much from one reval to the next reval, the market area itself?
They do, and we'll go through examples to show you how we calculate how much they changed.
Okay.
And the grouping market areas or grouping parcels into market areas is one of the most important jobs of the tax office, because you want to try to group properties that are similar together because you're saying that they behave similarly. We have 1,000 of them in Burke County right now. This is the building portion of that parcel that we looked at, where we saw the summary sheet. And you saw from the picture that it looked like it was under construction, it was being built. And as you can see here, it was built in 2024. Now, remember that this is still subject to the 2023 schedule of values. So even though it was built in 24, we're going to value it as though it was built in 23 with the same cost items so that you're uniform through the county. You can see that this, actually, I'm going to open up the actual camera screen so I can show you how the costs are built up a little cleaner. 18,543. So you can see here, here's the picture of the parcel. Here's the building portion. Built in 2024, and if I open this up, you can see that the base rate that I pointed out in the schedule of values previously was 115. So you can see it's $115. There's a size adjustment for 0.953. That's the building size adjustment. It's got a finished upper story, which is valued at exactly the same rate as the main body, which is what we consider the heated square footage of the property. That's sort of the base rectangular part of the house that's built, where the kitchen is, where the bulk of the construction costs are spent, and where all of the area is fully heated and not three-season. It has an unfinished basement, it has a porch, patio, and another porch. And that would help us build up the full value new of this property. So this is the replacement cost new of this property. To this, we add depreciation, and this was built in 24, so in 25, it's a year old, so it only has 1% depreciation. And this would give you the actual cost of the building portion of the property, and here is the cost of the entire parcel. So far, so good. Any questions so far?
So this is 55% complete
Yes,
in 24.
yes.
Has that been amended? Do we have a new parcel? Or do we have a new tax statement on it? Because that's how many years ago?
24 was
Almost
last
two.
year, right?
Almost two.
No, it was looked at in 24,
Yeah,
and so yes, so no, so this is going to be on, so we have 5 appraisers. We have lists of properties that these appraisers are going to go to. Whenever there's a situation like this, where there's a percentage of complete and you know that the house should be ready by the end of the year, we wait till the end of the year to go out to look at this house, because otherwise it's wasted trips to look at a home where we only care about what the property is on January 1 of 2026 now. That's when the value will change. So this will definitely be revised before January 1, 2026.
And I knew that, but I didn't think they did.
Yeah, no, that
So-
makes sense. It's a good question.
So we do look at, when the building permits that come from the planning and zoning office and the various towns that have their own, to go out and look at the percentage complete as of December 31 or January 1 to get a fair value of what's there. And then as they complete those homes, or it may be if it's somebody doing it themselves that's slower construction, then we'll do a percent complete for the next year or 100%. So the tax value would change for the next year based on what's there.
Still on the 23.
Schedule of values.
That's correct.
How do y'all determine the percentage of completion?
We have a formula. If the walls are up and, and the roof is up, and there's certain criteria that we have, and we apply those.
You know,
It,
whichever service is used, they should be using something like a construction draw schedule that has percentage of completion that banks use And that is accurate.
That is.
That is so much better than somebody coming in and say, well, is electrical roughed in, is the plumbing roughed in, blah, 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 you know. I mean, that'd be much more accurate.
Yes, I mean, in an ideal world, that would be a very good thing to use. So basically, every parcel is a sum of its cost components. Like to pause here and clarify a common misconception, or at least a difference in the way a very intrinsic item that we're going to use throughout the next couple of discussions versus what you guys might think about in terms of per square foot price is calculated. So if you look at this home, this is a realtor ad. It was actually sold in 2023 for $378,000. It was 1,800 square feet, and so you know, a realtor would say that this was $208 a square foot, and that's how you would tend to think of the price per square foot for a parcel like this. In CAMA, you saw that we had $115 for the main body of the parcel, and just looking at it, you would think that the value is highly undervalued. But the reason for that is that there are lots of different cost components that make up value in CAMA. So you've got the land, you've got the building, which will have the main body, but it's not the whole, that's not even the whole building. Anything that is not heated is added on in addition. So for this particular parcel, the full assessed value was $372,000. And it sold for $378,000. So even though our main body price for this was $115,000, and a normal realtor view of the world would be that it was $208,000, the fact that land and other heated components were not added to it makes it so that the $115,000 was actually the correct main body square footage price in our books. Does that make sense to people, or is that still sort of?
You can see where grade came into place there.
Yes.
On that slide. So you're looking at heating and air, and you can see the grade, well, there's grade adjustment, 122, 270, framed in garage, grade adjustment, 122. So because of location,
Yes, because of market area, you would.
it's got a higher grade because of the construction quality.
That's correct. And then the land pricing is based on where it actually is,
Correct.
right? All right, let's talk about sales. Sales indicate where the market is headed. If we look at the sales that have happened in Burke County from 2023 to current, and we only look at qualified sales, meaning sales that are with arm's length sales, where the cost of the property reflects market. We have 4,700 sales that have happened so far. Of those, 229 were commercial industrial and 4,493 were residential. The median per square foot price of the properties that sold was 153. Average is 161, obviously pulled up by the more expensive properties. The median year built is 1978. Median square footage of homes that sold was 1,400 square feet. For vacant land, the price per acre, the median price per acre was almost $22,000. The average, $45,000.
Is that,
residential
Yes.
component, or is it
Well,
both of them?
this is, so the second two columns here and here are residential, and here is just how many commercial sales happened.
And all of those are what are included in these lists.
That's correct.
That's all the sales.
but the vacant sales, is that all vacant property?
Yes,
put in that sum.
yes,
So that price per acre is so distorted, the median price would be distorted. Because it'd have to be portioned out. It'd have to be
it's,
a half acre lot with water and sewer and a good subdivision, highly restricted, you know. I mean, it's just so many variables there.
yes.
And
The-
then raw land out in the county, some of it on a dirt road.
Yes,
you know,
this is just
some
a-
state maintained, some not state maintained, all of that.
Yes,
Has
this,
to be
this
managed.
is just a median sales price for anything that had no building on it, just vacant land. If you look at sales by township, you can see that there were a fair number of sales throughout the county. The purpose of this is just to show you that there is a decent sample size for the assumptions that we are going to make going forward for how we will figure out how to adjust values for 2027.
These are the 13 townships, one county, 13 townships, that ultimately build up to 1,000.
Market areas,
Yeah.
exactly right.
These are number of sales. Do you have a dollar sales by township?
I
have that
have
figure?
this, we do.
That'd be interesting to see, I'd say.
I have the sales ratio, and we definitely have the dollars, we can show you that.
This is,
With that,
Yes,
well,
this is sorted by township, so we would just need to sum it by
yeah, I
township.
got it.
Yes.
The consolidated, I understand.
all right, so we've talked about assessed values, and we've talked about sales. The sales ratio is the assessed value divided by sales. The sales ratio is really important because it's going to show us what needs correction in 2027, where, which parts of the county need more adjustment than others. Just, it's showing us what the market is doing and where we need to go, because our mandate is that we need to value everything based on market in 2027. You could see, whoops, I'm on the wrong slide, apologize. You can see that the total sales for vacant land for 1,400 sales improved with 3,200. This is just residential. The median sales ratio, which is the assessed value, the 2023 assessed value divided by sales, for vacant land was 0.86, for improved was 0.79. What that means is that we valued our land more accurately than we valued our schedule of values, because the variance, the ratio for vacant land was 0.86, for improved was 0.79. The closer this number is to 1, that means the assessed value and market value are the same, the better the number is, the better the ratio is. But we know that the markets are fluctuating, so it's unreasonable to expect that this number is going to be the same. But by breaking it up like this between vacant and improved, you can tell where the correction is more needed. So that's really what we're doing right now, is that we are looking at these ratios and trying to figure out where the market grew, where sales grew more than other places, because that's where our assessed values have to increase the most. So if you look at it by township, you can see the sales ratio in the third column, and these are organized by descending sales ratios, which means that Lovelady, Drexel, Morganton need the least adjustment. They're as close to 1 as any of the townships. And Lower Creek and Smoky Creek have increased in value from where we had them in 2023, more so than others. And it's important to be able to do this because you're making a correction where the correction is needed by the amount that the market is dictating.
Is there a rule of thumb that the county is trying to get a percentage? Is there a certain percentage that,
Well,
that's kind of a rule of thumb that?
it's not the rule of thumb, it's where the market is going, right? So like when we did the revaluation in '23, there was a huge upsurge in sales in 2022. So the 2020 and 2021 sales were sort of irrelevant because the 22 sales drove where the value was going to be in 23. Between 23 and 27, values have increased, but not as exponentially as they did, in the last revaluation. So there isn't a set number that the values will increase by. It'll be dictated by where the sales are going. And as long as your sales ratio is 1 or close to 1, you are in good shape because you're matching the market.
So the ideal is to get to 1 so that your assessed value equals your sales value. Because the sales value divided into the assessed value would be.
But you'll never get the one.
No, because we're guessing what's going to be in the future is what we're doing.
You know, I've seen some instances in other areas. I'm thinking about Charleston County, South Carolina. And I may be mistaken, but it's almost like they don't do like a reassessment every 4 years, I don't think. And it's almost like when a sale becomes a sale, it's adjusted to that, the value is adjusted to that price,
Yeah,
which
so,
I'm not in agreement with that because I don't think it's not equalized.
There's some states that, like Florida, for instance, whatever you bought that price at, or property at, that's your tax value forever. And so you could have 2 identical homes built in 1975, and the original owner paid $75,000 for that, but somebody today would pay $500,000. And that's not being equitable, in my opinion. I think North Carolina's got one of the fairest tax value systems that is in the country.
And you know, there's so many factors, you know, people get building permits to finish, well, people don't get building permits to finish basements. And I know it's probably impossible to police it.
Right, we work with permits to see where we can, what we can. We don't go into homes when we're assessing them, we have to look at them from the outside. However, when they're trying to sell them and there are pictures of the property from the inside, then we save those pictures.
Can a homeowner refuse to let you into the house?
Yeah,
We don't go in, we do not go into homes unless they ask us to go into the homes.
and yes, and there are lots of no trespassing
All
signs.
that's kind of not
There-
right, really.
There's also obviously there's controls put in place, as you mentioned, for additions and finishing basements and those type of things, that if you need a building permit, that communicates with the tex office and those type of things. But this year we also did and I'm not sure if those images are on GIS yet, but we've partnered with a company called Eagle View, and they did some new additional oversight flying to update our optics, and it'll be it's really an upgrade from a pixel perspective that gives us detail, but it also allows us to have more of a street view. Historically, when you only have a top down, number one, it's difficult because sometimes there's canopy.
Right.
But it's difficult because you can't see the sides of property and so forth. So we've been able to update that photography, but also add a technology that compares our tax system sketch to what's actually there. And so when they don't overlay correctly and you see maybe a new addition sticking out here, that gives us something to explore.
Good.
So I think that will help with fair, equitable taxation too.
Yes, we made a lot of corrections this year, thanks to Eagle View. And it's safer we have 5 appraisers, 1's a girl. Some of the neighborhoods are quite rough to go into. So having pictometry and having pictures makes the job a lot safer, for our employees as well. This breaks down sales ratios even further. Now you're looking at improved versus vacant lots in townships. And if you take an example, for example, Jonas Ridge, you can see that the vacant sales ratio was 0.775, improved 0.692, tells us that our land pricing in Jonas Ridge was better than what we did with our schedule of values, or more improvements are needed in the schedule of values. By using sales ratio, you can drill down into minutia and figure out where adjustments are needed. And you're doing it based on sales. So you're not making up a number. You're not coming up with a random adjustment on a property. You're using the sales that you have to drive your decisions about value. Similarly, in Morganton, for example, if you look at the vacant sales ratio, 0.96, that means our land pricing in Morganton was pretty decent. Improved sales ratio, 0.78, not so good. So all of this tells us that we need to improve our schedule of values, and maybe some of the adjustments that we're doing, we have too tight a size adjustment on our building, which we plan to loosen up in 2027. Just going through all of the townships here, and again, the idea is to show you that the sales ratio really drives in.
Mary, can you,
Yeah.
so you just used an example of we may change the way that we look at a size adjustment for an improved
Property.
inside the city. Similar to land, as you buy additional acreage, it's not,
Yes.
an increment, it's not the same approach of 1 acre is 20, so 2 is 40, and 3 is
Correct.
60. Square footage is largely the same, and adjustments for, you're talking about size adjustments. So,
Yeah.
That's one of the things that after we all, I think, have a strong understanding and agreement on the framework, and that these are all qualified sales that are the baseline for our sales ratio to begin building on, those types of adjustments of, if we altered the allowance for size adjustment inside the city of Morgan based on square footage, this is what it would do to the sales ratio. Those are the type of things that, once we get this behind us, we can start having some really good discussion on as this group.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that is the goal. So if you come back to our graphic that we've been trying to build all along, you could see here we are today. We're looking at the gap between sales and the 2023 SOV to figure out what changes we need to make. Our goal is to figure out what this new brown line has to be. The new brown line has to match sales. That means the new assessed values have to match the sale in 2027. How are we going to do this? We're going to look at land first, and then we're going to look at our schedule of values. So for our next meeting, our plan is that we are going to look at sales of vacant land. As we speak right now, the tax office has been working. We've come up with clusters and trends. So what that means is that we've now looked at sales for vacant land. We've figured out that sales prices have been increasing. What that means is if there was a sale that happened in 2024, for example, that same house, if that had sold in 2025, would have sold for a little bit more because we know that the sales prices are going up. Trending means that you're taking out any time adjustment that might be needed for a sale to happen. So, for example, if you looked at those townships that we talked about previously, and all the sales in that township happened in 24, we know that the sales ratio there would look good because prices hadn't increased as much as they were going to, as they have now in 25. So we want to take out any adjustment for time. That's called trending. So trending's been done already in the system, which we'll share with you in January. There's also something called clustering. So now we know we had 4,700 sales in the county. Unfortunately, they didn't happen evenly all through the county. They happened in swaths of the county. There were large swaths that had no sales. So what you end up doing is clustering market areas together. So remember, 1,000 market areas. Now we're clustering some of them together to make sure that we've got a decent sample size of sales within those market areas to make assumptions for the homes that didn't sell. Because that's what we're doing with the reval is you're looking at homes and vacant land that sold, and you're saying that if this land sold for this much, then the house that didn't sell should be worth this much. So by the end of this, well, now, this week, we plan to finish clustering, meaning putting our market areas together. At the end of December, we plan to have our vacant land pricing done, which is what we plan to share with you in January. That's the spiel. Any questions? Yeah.
What was the percentage of breakaway in 2023?
Honestly, I don't know. I wasn't here.
You're saying how close was our, what was our sales ratio basically January 2nd of 2023?
Yeah, like if we were at 10% right now is the breakaway.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was the breakaway back then?
You mean from 2019 to 2023?
41%.
41%. So we're a little better.
Yeah. That was the average, I would say. Again, each township had its own, but the average, if you accumulated, and I'm saying total, that includes industrial, commercial, that's the total, what was the tax base, then what was it just for real property, it's about 41%.
So what that means is that the prices of real estate and homes and commercial property increase more between 2019, 2023 than it has between 2023 and now, although it's still going up.
I would assume you guys have seen that in the market.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you look, so we look at MLS data every month too, and we're starting to see for the first time inventory growing. It's not stagnant, so there's more properties for sale, days on market. The difference between list price and sales price is growing a bit, meaning most sellers seem to be willing to accept a little bit less. You guys do this for a living, not me, but that's what the data says. And so since our values have stayed stagnant, if sales prices are starting to triculate down, these are where our ratios are today, but that gap may even close a little bit more, over time.
So the hope is that the curve's gonna go that way.
That's correct.
Yeah, we're going through some adjustment.
Yeah, there's maybe a correction is the right word.
That's true.
I don't know that anyone thinks that replacement costs, which ultimately drives value, as long as there's inventory, typically construction cost or replacement cost is going to drive, the starting point of sales. And labor and materials likely aren't going to recede. So I don't think that I hear anyone saying prices are going to go down, but maybe they'll stop rising as swiftly as they have in the last 5 years.
2019 to 2023 was terrible for the state of North Carolina. It was not only Burke County. There was a lot of anomalies when we did the reval. That was before John, that was before Brian, that was before Rita. I was taken aback when we got the report. Colony Springs, of all places, the values were just out the flipping roof. And those people were they were PO'd big time bad. I don't know what the reason for it was, that Colony Springs happened to be one area of the county that exploded for some reason. But it was just bad years between 2019 and 2023. And I think we did as well as we could, with what we had to work with at that time to bring the values where they needed to be. I mean, it hurt us. It hurt us bad. But like I say, we're in a correction now. I like that word. Yeah. And with this group, I think we can come to where we need to be to people. People look at their tax bills. That's what they look at, and they said, well, it went up. And that's all they care about is, when they pay their tax bills. I think we can give people a clear view of what we're trying to do here, what we've done, why we went to a 4-year cycle on this, why the rest of the state's going on it. We obviously, in my prior position as a commissioner, we had some trouble with the company that we work here with Farragut. That comes through North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. We've got those problems squared, everything's squared away. We're probably, in my personal opinion, as good a shape right now with the group. We got the smartest people that we could have working on.
I like the qualifier that we can have.
We're working. I think we're gonna get as close as we can, you know, on these sales ratios and what market values are. I mean, we're kind of stable across the state right now. I think everybody's seeing kind of the same thing, so I'm really proud of where we're at.
You know, I think with Conley Springs, I think what has happened, the sales in Morganton area and maybe the more desirable areas drove prices up so high that people had to go to Conley Springs, which had much lower values. So that's why you're seeing such an adjustment on that, because they had to go there.
Well, and you've also got people coming in from out of town who find areas like Glen Alpine and other areas where people maybe found it a little bit difficult to build, appealing, because now they can work from home and they can enjoy the outdoors, you know, and it's driving values up.
And I think what Namrita just said about is very true, because the areas up around Beach Mountain, Sugar Mountain are very desirable, and you've got the people coming from out of state and can't afford that, so they're coming further down the mountain a little bit to around Lake James and in the Jonas Ridge area, and that's driving those prices up some.
May I ask you, so do we, I'm guessing on general statutes, do you have to have it every 4 years? It has, the sales tax has to meet the assessed value?
Yes.
It was
Has to, no matter what.
what the statute says is that it has to be done once every 8 years, unless that sales ratio goes out of balance. If it goes more than 115% or below 85%, then the state forces you to do it within the next 2 years. We've gotten the letter from the state that we have to do it, but we were already planning to do it anyway.
So if that's where we're at though, how much discretion does this board have to change anything, I guess, in the number wise? It's more just, you're going to give us the numbers, right?
I mean, so yes and no, right? So I think the discretionary component is agreeing on what the market is, right? So we have the sales. We know what 4,722 pieces of property have sold for, and we can compare that to what the tax value was, which is static, and we can compute that ratio, and that's our kind of baseline starting place. Call that a predictive analytics. So when you look at the 13 townships on the slide that Namrita had a couple of slides ago, and you're like, well, Morganton's at 0.82, but Jonas Ridge is at 0.78, right? So that tells you, you would expect Jonas Ridge to need about a 22% cumulative, and again, you got to break that down into improved, unimproved structure. And you would expect Morganton, as of today, if today was January 1, 2027, to be at about an 18% increase. The question is, what are the adjustments to get there? So the schedule of values, this team was largely put together so that we could show the work, and there could be credibility and advocacy and all of those things in the community. But the second part of that is, there will need to be conversation about what is a fair per acre value in this township, in Conley Springs, for an improved parcel versus an unimproved parcel, and what does that do to the sales ratio? Or go back to the square footage adjustment. So if you buy 1,000 square foot home, and we're going to value that at, let's say our baseline in 2023 was 115 a square foot. Let's say we all agree based on the data that it should be at 148. I'm making something up. So we go from 115 to 148. Well, that's not uniform across, you know, if you take 1,000 square foot times 148 and adjustments, if you build a 5,000 square foot house, that's not the same 148. So you get an adjustment there. Maybe it's 90%. Maybe you get a little bit of relief as a builder. You're like, yeah, if you build 1,000 square feet, you've got to do, you know, there's no economies of scale. In other words, when you're gaining that additional square footage, just like with land. And those are the characteristics that we'll put into our schedule of values. Hopefully that should finalize in October or November of 2026. And then once those schedules, and there's a lot of decisions in there that the market should drive, but our goal was to have professional staff working with a group of experts to agree on those things, to present those to the Board of Commissioners in late 2026, then to apply to our tax records that generate the values.
So it sounds like you can kind of manipulate very small things within those, as long as the ratio at the end of the day comes up to what it needs to be, you can still take one
That's correct.
very small.
Yes.
As close to
Yes.
one as possible, right, as close to.
But either way, it has to be, whatever it's gonna be is what it's gonna be.
Exactly right.
But like, for example, you could say, instead of doing the 115 to 148 base per square foot, you could just take the 148 to 162 and do away with all of the grades and do away with all the other components and characteristics and apply that, and you may get to a 1 in Conley Springs, but then your Jonas Ridge may be at 92. You see what I'm saying? So that's the reason, to Nonready's point, when you say my house sold for $200,000 and it was 1,000 square feet, we all just assume, well, that's $200 a square foot. But that isn't as detailed as Campbell would break the value down, because, you know, it's gonna look at the type of square footage and the age and all of the other things, so that can be applied to 60,000 parcels. There's, you know, it's as detailed as possible because there's such a volume and differentiation between those parcels.
And part of the problem too is that most of the citizens don't understand the schedule of value.
No.
They don't, they're looking at their, you know, my square footage is 1,200 and it's times 200 and that's what my tax rate ought to be. And they don't understand that, and when we try to talk to them about it, from the tax office, it comes to us at the ERR board, and then we have to explain that to them, and sometimes the light goes off in their head.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, I now understand. But that's probably a minority of people, probably like 5 or 10%.
Yeah.
Because they just think tax is tax, tax is a tax.
I mean, basically, our goal in the tax office is figuring out each property's prorated value as compared to the whole. So you're looking at it as a snapshot, you're looking at it as a point in time, because all you're trying to figure out is what your property is worth as compared to every other property in Burke County. You're not collecting more taxes or less taxes. In total, you're collecting whatever the budget says you need to collect. You're just figuring out how much each individual homeowner's share is going to be. And as the market changes and as other areas become more desirable, the idea is that you're adjusting that prorated share. And that's also, if, for example, if sales grew by 10% and nothing changed in terms of desirability and everyone's homes were exactly correct, you wouldn't even need to increase the value 10% because your prorated share is going to be exactly correct. But because different areas increase by different amounts, vacant land increases differently than improved parcels, that's the reason for the revaluation.
That makes sense, I just want to make sure.
On the
Yeah.
total tax that comes in, what percentage of it is residential and what percentage of it is commercial?
Honestly, I'm not sure, but I'm sure a big chunk, even though, would you know the answer to that, Ryan?
We're about 11.2 billion total right now. Of that, about 900 million from motor vehicles. So I know how much is personal. I know how much is regulated through like the utility commission, which would be like AT&T, railroad, those kind of things. But inside of just real property, the residential versus commercial, I'm not sure. I would speculate that it's probably 75-25. But I don't know that number off the top of my head.
I would think it'd be 80-20, I don't know. Of course, a lot of the commercial values are very distorted, as Jerry knows.
We have 2 commercial taxpayers that have a value of 100 million, and then it drops pretty significantly down to about 60, 65. So it's not as large of an industrial commercial base here as some of the counties around us. And I try to explain to folks, if you have one industrial corporate taxpayer that has $100 million value, that reduces the taxing burden. That's the equivalent to about 1,600 homes. It reduces the taxing burden on homes substantially. And they don't consume more resources. So not only does economic development create jobs and upward mobility and ways to make a living for folks and who buy homes and help, you know, all of the residual economic benefits, it also is the most fundamental, simplest way to reduce the taxing burden on the rest of the community. Because a fire truck costs what a fire truck costs, and an ambulance costs what an ambulance costs, and we have to have those assets. But it is certainly a more efficient way to have more corporate citizenship. And when you look at some of our surrounding counties, they just have an advantage there that we don't yet have. But I know our Board of Commissioners are working hard to get that done.
Now, hopefully, those buildings will be
Yeah,
repaired.
that's right.
State buildings will be ready and restful development.
Yes. Yes.
Right off the cliff.
Yeah, we'll go through our commercial properties at some point here too, right, Brian? I mean, we'll show you how we come up with values for commercial properties. Jerry and I went through a bunch of his properties at the beginning of '23 when I just come in. And I think your input in that kind of field would be great when we're looking at commercial property.
My last question would be, between now and October of next year, do you think the trend will go up a percentage or down? I mean,
My guess is it'll probably slow down. It already looks like it's slowing down. I mean, homes stay on the market a little bit longer.
So the hope is it goes back.
Yeah, market's
Yeah,
off
if
a
it-
little bit, for sure.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have the ability to bounce,
Yeah, we can.
right?
You know, not from new construction,
Yeah.
you know, because you can't, of course, you know, the old saying, appraisals, you know, cost does not represent value. And, you know, that's the thing with building costs, you know, it never has. But people just have to pay. When they build a house, in order to get new construction and good construction, they're gonna have to pay over and above. You know, yeah, the value. Yeah. But they understand that, well, most people.
Okay, any other questions for Namrita? All right, if not, I think most of you, Brian, did y'all get a copy of the sales? Okay, you got a copy of the sales report. Okay, so at this time, what we'd like to do, if you've taken a look at that, is accept a motion to accept that schedule, those sales ratios for these properties that the county has identified for these mini sales in the community. So if we can have a motion to accept that. I have a motion by the vice chair and a second by Evan. All right. And then I need a motion to accept Namrita's presentation today, which was extremely good. Namrita, thank you so much.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and Evan on the second on that one. Okay. All right, at this time,
That was easy.
at this time, thank you, Namrita. At this time, we'll open the floor for comments from board members, if you have any. Anybody have any comments? All right, hearing none, we'll close this portion of the meeting. Let me remind you that our next meeting is January the 6th of 2026 at 9:00 a.m. In between that time, we have a big holiday coming, Christmas. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. And thank you for being here today. Welcome to our 2 new members. Thank you so very much. We really appreciate that so much. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? All right, and a second. All right, thank you so much.
Tell me about it.